Okay, welcome back, everyone, again to another episode on AI with the human role. And we still have our special guest, Bob Pulver. He is founder and principal of Elevate Your AIQ and a top tier responsible AI advisor. So last episode, we talked about AI governance and really just kind of keeping up with, implementing AI within your company and best practices there. For this episode, we're going to get into another new term for me, Human-Centric AI, which was really interesting. Bob was nice enough to send me a great article. I will actually plug this article in this episode from Kyle Lagunas, who really got some expert insight, including Bob's insight as well, on human-centric AI and how that fits into the HR world of things. And so wanted to give Bob another avenue, I guess you can say, on helping us understand at least the meaning behind the human-centric AI, because that was brand new. The minute Bob sent me that, I was like, what is this? Like, I'm so far behind. Would love to get your insight, Bob, here on like just the meaning of human-centric AI and kind of like how that ties into, the HR world of things.
Glad to continue the conversation, Tiana. There's a lot of terminology. There's a lot to keep up with, so don't feel bad if you don't know every verb and adjective that gets thrown out there in this space. One of the questions I get a lot is, because I've been working in the responsible AI space, well, what's the difference between responsible AI and human-centric AI? There's definitely overlapping. That is a Venn diagram there, because there's a lot of elements that overlap. Whereas responsible AI, as we talked about before, is like this umbrella sort of official market. I would call it a market category, but responsible AI covers AI governance, privacy, security, explainability. I guess some would argue there's human centricity as a part of that. But really, when I talk about human-centric AI, it's how do we make sure that humans still have the ability to be their best selves and to showcase their potential and apply all their innate human, skills and traits as work evolves, and using AI to either automate the things that we don't want to do or augment human intelligence and creativity, and even human intelligence. I'd say it's individual human intelligence as well as our collective human intelligence. So how does AI come in and augment that, and keeping humans the priority and AI as this toolkit? Some are calling it, treat it like your intern, treat it like a new employee, et cetera. And there's all these, different ways of looking at it depending on what you're actually asking AI to do. But there was some distraction in the way that people have been framing AI, like humans should provide the oversight, always have to have a human in the loop, and things of that nature. But the problem is, if humans are in the loop, it implies that we're just sort of in this oversight role and AI is going to do all the work. So we're just going to make sure, it's like, I'm envisioning like a manufacturing plant. Well, there's like a supervisor who's just making sure that, the robots don't, go crazy and do something stupid. So I think that concept is a little bit incongruous to staying human-centric. And so the focus is really about how do we use AI where we should, not everywhere we could. Don't just say, well, AI could do this, so let's just let AI do it. Maybe there's tasks and jobs that people really enjoy doing and get a lot of fulfillment out of doing, and there's value in human judgment, human creativity in those tasks. So let's make sure we have humans continuing to do that. And then...
Hi, we're Meg and Amy from The Meg and Amy Show.
We're not only tech execs and big picture thinkers, we're also best friends.
We're curious learners. And on this podcast, we're challenging the status quo and activating the future.
And we're going to give advice about work and leadership, right, Meg?
We can't help ourselves. But this podcast is about exploring possibility, not being right.
That sounds refreshing.
For more, tune in to The Meg and Amy Show.
When it comes to augmenting human intelligence, a lot of people literally use augmented intelligence as what AI, as how they define AI instead of artificial intelligence. Because the goal is not for machines to replace a lot of the things that we do. It's to augment human beings, let's think about humans first, and all the things that we're capable of and all the things that we feel like we should continue to do. And a lot of that goes to decision making, but how do we augment our own decision making to help mitigate the biases that we talked about before? How do we get AI to be, in some cases, like a thought partner or a second brain? Like, how do you, where your memory or your recollection may fail you, or where you've got biases that you don't even think about because they're subconscious? How does AI help you make better decisions in the moment, in the time of need, in the time when you're trying to make that decision? And how do we make sure that we're using AI, when we do use AI in the decision-making process, and we're evaluating other humans, like in performance management, or whether or not to hire this person or promote this person or give them a pay raise or whatever? How do we make sure that we have fairness in mind and we're thinking about the human experience? So this comes up a lot in talent acquisition. Like, well, we can't respond to every candidate. What do you mean? Well, you could start to use AI. You could craft responses so that they don't get ghosted, and so that they, get some feedback about how they could do better next time, or get specifics about why they weren't selected to move forward, and things like that. Or, there's all kinds of examples, like making sure that people get that it's not just like the loudest voices in the room in a meeting that get all the attention. So how do you sort of level the playing field for different personalities within an organization? So there's a lot of different examples throughout our work and personal lives where we want to make sure, even as technology advances and AI takes on more capabilities, that humans stay the focus, and how we use AI to be better humans, right? It sounds sort of counterintuitive, but how do we maintain our humanity and our humanness as technology evolves?
The augmenting piece was really good key for me, because as companies are trying to implement AI, lots of, the employee population, sometimes they start wanting people to have pity on them and just feel bad. And naturally, I think there are some companies that are probably taking too much of a risk right now. You can let me know if you've seen that or not. But I do think for the companies who are properly implementing it, including your team in that process, right? So that they're aware of that, and that their roles may evolve, but not necessarily be fully eliminated. When it comes to AI, I think would be a really good eye opener for, everyone in any which seat to see, as we kind of get to this new world that we're, kind of being thrusted into now. And it is really helpful. So it's funny when you mentioned that AI could potentially help you when you forget something, like being back in school now for my MBA, we'll have AI on, the professors will have AI on, and it will remind them to send us certain emails. So they'll tell us the next class, oh, I almost forgot to send this, but the AI told me, hey, don't forget to send this. So it's there's definitely good use that we could get out of AI, right? Because you're right. When you're talking, going through your day, you got tons of emails, tons of messages, people come to your door. If you're in the office, naturally, you're going to forget something. I think it got a little bit scary some months back where I heard someone say, well, let's go ahead and put AI on the org chart. And it was whoa, we're going to actually budget for them and actually have AI listed on the org chart. A little bit scary. But it's true, kind of what you were saying, right? We're going to implement it. We've got to embrace it as a coworker, essentially, right? Is that kind of the way to start to think about it?
I think the AI agents, I don't know how deep you want to go into different terminology with AI, but I'll just use two quick examples. One, an AI assistant is what you're used to sort of talking with in a conversational AI context. Maybe you go to a website, you've got a customer service little, chatbot, and knows natural language. It can understand different languages, and can just have a normal conversation. Might be like a general purpose thing. But maybe you have an HR service desk, a chatbot, where it's been trained on all your knowledge, so people can ask questions about benefits and vacation, and who do I talk to about this, whatever. So it's basically just like a question answering kind of interaction. Agents are actually executing tasks on your behalf. They literally have some level of agency or autonomy to go and talk to other systems, gather other pieces of information. It's basically finding the context in which it needs to help, to give you a better, more informative response. So we're going to see this a lot. This is going to hit everyone who has an Alexa device is about to experience the difference between just asking Alexa to, play a song or set a timer, or what's the weather, or just give you a news update. You're about to get a significant upgrade with what Amazon just announced called Alexa Plus. Like a lot of these latest AI tools, the more context you give it, the more information it knows about you, the more it can help you. So we were talking before about like forgetting things. If it has access to different pieces of data that you've told it like verbally, or you've fed it, some documentation or whatever, it can alert you to things that you didn't know you needed to be aware of. So I'll give you an example. My daughter's about to start lacrosse season. She normally has practices before school at like 6:30 in the morning on Thursdays. Last night after dinner, the coach sent a message saying, "We're not going to do that. We're going to have practice after school." That's not good. That's not good. She had other plans after school. But in the future, Alexa could be in the car and it could let someone know that the schedule has changed and you have a conflict it's reading your calendar. It sees you have a conflict. Would you like me to send an email to coach letting him know that you're planning to be there in the morning, but can't be there in the afternoon? Like just simple examples like that, but real-time context, maybe you're forgetting somebody's, birthday, or, God forbid you forget your anniversary. But like reminders like that, or, you've got this thing coming up. I'm going to block time on your calendar so that you've got time to, prepare for this, meeting that you're running, or like all these little things. Like you're going to have these agents basically grabbing all this context and helping you, and you didn't even realize that you needed help. So we're moving towards this almost like, for Marvel comics fans, we're moving towards this like, Jarvis universal assistant mode where these agents have that level of autonomy, and the more data they have access to, the more they can help you. I would just caution about revealing, too much. And we're always in this sort of perennial debate about privacy, right? Like the more information you reveal, the more your experience can be personalized. But for a lot of people, that's a line that they're just not comfortable with. So there's a lot, coming in that regard. But just in terms of human centricity in the workplace, maybe you don't want to have an agent doing certain tasks that are on your plate because you feel it requires some human sort of sensitivity in terms of, empathy, or maybe it's creativity, or maybe it's just some innate, human trait that you feel is going to be discounted or shortchanged if it is basically handed off to an agent. But this is an ongoing debate. I was just on a webinar earlier today where actually our friend Kyle was talking about, build versus buy versus borrow versus buy. So it's getting a lot more complicated. Like what are the situations and the tasks and the workflows or whatever where we should hire somebody or assign this to a full-time employee? Maybe this is something that should go to, a contractor or, a fractional worker or something like that. And then is this something that we should outsource because it's not a core competency? But now you have the bot entering that picture as a fourth option that says, is this something that we should keep in-house? It's cheaper. It's not necessarily something that a human being needs to do. And now it's just a matter of, is this a third party, sort of agent that we can implement, or is it something that we can actually build ourselves because it's going to be working in a sensitive area like HR, and we've got the skills and the know-how to build it ourselves, and let's do it. So you've got to have a human, what I think is needed is you still need a human-centric lens, over all of that. And some of those decisions are probably already being made, like, am I going to need this work and these skills for the long term, and therefore I should get approval to hire a full-time employee, or is this something that is a temporary project, or this skill is, not like an in-demand, hugely in-demand, future skill, and so let's just bring in, a contractor for 6 months or whatever. So those decisions about which human or what category of human labor do I need to, bring in for this particular, task or team or project, now you have the added variable of could this and should this be done by some form of digital labor.
Yeah, all I heard was that AI is basically enhancing our entire industry. Just because I wanted to also pick your brain, you nailed it. So I'm trying to make sure we get all the points, because initially I was wondering, okay, Is AI going to start replacing us slowly but surely? But even the examples you provided, it's literally just a full enhancement that we all have to embrace. Those reminders, being able, especially if you're driving, right? And something happens. Imagine how many times have we been worked up when we've seen a text or an email and we want to respond quickly. We're in the middle of traffic. And it's like, no, if AI can spit back to you like, hey, look, you have a conflict. Do you want me to respond? And knows how you typically respond. And so they can put that together properly and send it off. Like that's just one less stress that we have to deal with, one less email we have to remember to go back to when we park, or maybe we're rushing into a dinner or into an important meeting. These are all things that we absolutely just have to continue to embrace. And to your point, utilize it, but also just be careful. We don't want to just be blurting out all of our business, because it is being housed somewhere for people to pick at. But, lots of people don't read the disclaimers, but they're there. So we want to just make sure that we're being cautious in that area. But I would say just utilize it as much as possible and don't run from it. And I didn't even realize about Alexa Plus. So it's like more things are coming and they're definitely revolutionizing everything, right? Like we're getting to that point. And I feel like we're all going to be tech people, right? Like I didn't think, we're all going to be, we're all going to be coders or something. Do you think so?
Well, everyone should have some level of AI literacy. And I think to your point, it's not just learning how to type a better prompt. It's how do you know how to talk to an AI to elicit the response that is the most, accurate and contextual and meaningful. I mean, even typing, I think, is already not phased out. I mean, it's still going to be a long time before people, completely switch to voice. But to your point, I mean, whether you're in the car or you're in the kitchen or, we're already used to talking to the Googles and the Siris and the Alexas of the world. And I think that will continue. So voice is going to be the prominent sort of user interface to a lot of these AI technologies, at least in our personal lives. But at work, that could evolve as well, right? We've got AI note takers and taking all the meeting minutes and action items and things like that, and those could be used for virtual as well as in-person meetings. They're using them for those in talent acquisition. I mean, they're already using them in interviews, right, to record interviews and derive insights from interviews, whether that's like recruiter phone screens and early steps within the hiring process, or in-person interviews for final candidates. It's helping the interviewer and the hiring team, but it could also be used to provide feedback to the candidate if the employer chose to do that. There's a lot to come. I just think when we talk about being human-centric, you've got to think about these experiences. So I think about the candidate first and foremost, but I also think about, the recruiter experience, the hiring manager experience. All these experiences can be enhanced, but we don't want to remove the sort of decision-making power from folks. So I don't want them to think that AI is solely, making any of these decisions, because it absolutely should not be. That would be problematic, but it can help to mitigate the bias. I know people say AI is biased, so I'd rather talk to a human. Well, human's definitely biased. Like it's not even really debatable. Even experienced, hiring managers and interviewers will exhibit some bias. At least AI, the bias can be transparent, it can be visible, and it can be course corrected. So yes, AI can scale bias, but like we talked about before, if you are constantly monitoring it and adjusting it, then you can fix it at scale, which is not something that you can really do with human bias, where it may just go unrecognized. Frankly, if someone doesn't file a claim with the EEOC here in the US, that bias may never reveal itself. There's a lot of things to consider, but again, in talent, I just want to make sure people are treated fairly, not because they have a good relationship with their leadership team, but because they are the person with the most sort of promise and the most potential to succeed in a given role at a given time. The other thing I just wanted to mention is like around skills. So AI is continuing to advance in its capability, and it's also showing how it's reasoning through a problem. So as AI sort of advances, as human beings, we need to continually, focus on the skills that make us innately human. So the most in-demand skills, if you look at like World Economic Forum and some other, studies, like all the top in-demand skills for 2030, for example, none of them are technical skills, not one. The only thing that is even remotely technical is AI literacy, which isn't necessarily learning how to program and be, an AI developer. It's how do you know how to use it properly, use it ethically and fairly, and how do you know how to, sort of elicit the right, responses so that AI is the best virtual assistant you've ever had. Those are some things to think about as people think about continuing to work, with, side by side with AI. And how do you, sort of upskill and reskill? Part of it is your AI readiness, and that's literacy, responsible AI practices that'll probably come to a compliance training, at your company at some point in the future, because you want to, mitigate the weak links. But, this isn't just about playing defense. This is about understanding how it can help you be more effective, not just more efficient. How do you help the company and help your team use AI so that you guys can be more effective and so that you can be more innovative? Once people see and realize what AI can do, we're going to have all kinds of amazing ideas, right? And so how do you unleash that ingenuity and that creativity to take you to new places, enter new markets, et cetera? So that's, I guess, one of the important pieces of advice I want to give people. This isn't just about, efficiency. This isn't just about, mitigating risk. This is like, well, what could you do now that you know what AI is capable of?
Bob Pulver, everyone, leaving us with some great nuggets here, right? Great takeaways, just continuing to embrace it. For the people who have not even tried to use AI, I would suggest just pulling up one of the many, many websites out there, the ChatGPTs, the Geminis. You can just play around, drop something in. I promise you'll be fascinated and continue to figure out how to use it, right? And just make sure. I like to sometimes drop something in and just make sure I'm not too far off and get some additional insight there. So all good things. Before I let you go, Bob, I know we've been here for a while, but wanted to allow you also the floor. Everyone, Bob has his own AI podcast outside of his advisory support. So Elevate Your AIQ. So Bob, let us know what you're doing over there. I want to send everyone over your way. And obviously it's focused, heavily around the AI stuff. How does that look, at least on your side of the house?
So the podcast is called Elevate Your AIQ, and my guests are startup founders, they're talent and HR leaders, they're AI ethicists and educators. Some of them are not necessarily educators by schooling, by training. They're just people who have embraced AI themselves. They've taken Tiana and my advice, and they've become sort of AI literate, and now they're thinking about all the ways in which they can help their small business, help their kids, and all these areas. And so they've developed maybe boot camps or literacy programs. So I just wanted them to, give them the floor to talk about, they're not a technical person, but this is what I was able to accomplish. And this is the business that I've started. And it's incredibly rewarding, just as any, educator would probably say about the things that they teach others how to do. But they recognize the importance of AI literacy and readiness for all of us, for current workforce and future workforce. They're doing cool things, and I just like to give them the floor, as you've given me here, Tiana, to just explain, just why this is so important. There's very few professions that are sort of spared from some impact of AI. So I talk to all those folks. It's a weekly show. It's on all the major platforms. If you just search for Elevate Your AIQ, you should find me. And I hope you come and check it out.
Yeah, perfect. Go connect with Bob, everyone. Go check out his podcast and get all the insights of AI, because it is here. It is not going anywhere. And definitely continuing to evolve. So thank you so much, Bob, yet again, for giving your insight, getting us clued into these new terms that are going to come. I'm sure within the next month or so, they may continue to change, but we'll kind of stay on top of things. So thank you for spending some time with us today. And I'll see everyone else in a couple of weeks on another episode.